This video isn't going to cover the SCP-5000 article. I'm going on the basis that you're already familiar with it. I will, however, lay out some key facts from the article I will bring up in this video. Spoilers immediately ahead. I'll give you a moment to click away if you have not read or listened to the article and wish to do so. Okay. In the SCP-5000 entry, the Foundation had been working on a quote-unquote Project Numa, which, in addition to being a mass amnesticization project, essentially the Men in Black red flashy thing, but on a massive scale, explored the collective unconscious, or psychospace of humanity, and in the process made a breakthrough discovery about said psychospace. This discovery, according to the article, motivates the Foundation, supposedly mercifully, to attempt to end humanity entirely. Unleash everything they have in their arsenal because it's better than the alternative. The most popular theory seems to be that the large, reality-distorting entity PHOCs, and which the Foundation is actively fighting, is, or rather its presence is, the breakthrough the Foundation made, discovering this entity to be in the unconscious psychosphere of all humans. And it has such terrible plans for us in the future that the Foundation decides it's better to kill everyone, again even using all the horrors that the Foundation had previously kept contained, than to leave us at the mercy of that thing.
Where are you taking this thing?
There is an image seemingly of black at the end of the SCP-5000 article, which when read through some image analysis software, ends up providing a conversational log between a Tejani, SCP-5000 author's choice of name for the head of the Foundation Ethics Committee, and 051. In the conversation, Tejani accepts the plans the SCP Foundation has to end the human race, apparently unable to bring himself to disagree. That says something when the head of the Ethics Committee says,
"Nuke the bastards.
Put them out of their misery now so that that thing
Where are you taking this thing?
doesn't get its dirty little paws on them in the future. They also say in this conversation that they'll have to disseminate a cure, but more on that later. Side note, does this mean that when SCP-682 killed those farmers...
Now, why did you kill those farmers?
...and that D-Class, he was being merciful? That is, in doing the same thing the Foundation ends up deciding to be just and moral? SCP-682, you're a stand-up guy. With a connection between SCP-5000 and 682 already established, I would like to add a connection to another SCP, SCP-49, everyone's favorite plague doctor. My theory is that this entity, the villain of the SCP-5000 article, is the very pestilence SCP-49 is seeking to cure us from. What better words to describe this unspeakable horror are there than
unspeakable horror
and
the scourge, the great dying.
Remember, SCP-49 isn't talking about the bubonic plague because when asked,
When you say the great dying, are you talking about the bubonic plague?
SCP-49 pauses and responds with,
I don't know what that is.
It's like, did you go to school for your doctor's degree, SCP-49, or... Anyway, we know he isn't talking about the bubonic plague, which leaves the pestilence open for interpretation. So, is SCP-49 aware of and actively trying to cure us from said entity? Let's go through SCP-49's own words and see if they apply. SCP-49 says,
There is only one ailment that exists in the world of men, and that is the pestilence, and nothing else.
Saying that this one thing is worse than all the other stuff we actively fight on a daily basis. And with all the diseases and conditions we're aware of, nothing seems to match the terms SCP-49 lays out for us in the article for the pestilence, meaning we have no concept for it, at least yet. That's where SCP-5000 and my humble part come in. While in containment, SCP-49 remarks that there is
such little trace of the pestilence here,
which presumably there would be less around people who have a heightened awareness of mimetic anomalies, cognitohazards, and the methods to fight them, including mnestics and amnestics. The very effective, you might even say,
most effective
defenders against anomalies of all kinds would be purer than those of us who have no awareness of such things. SCP-49 has the ability to, with a single touch, end the life of any earthly organism. It is so immediate because, as we learned from the article, the Foundation and Ethics Committee agree that people need to be put out of their misery now. It's just better that way. SCP-49's ability seems to match the level of urgency that the Foundation has. I thought I had come across a problem when, in SCP-49's observational log 049.ol.2 summary, SCP-49 is provided the corpse of a recently deceased goat, and comments that the disease was still in its nascent stage, seeming to me to say that the goat still had the disease, which would conflict with the efficacy of the Foundation killing people to spare them from the entity's effects, which the entity got all up in a tizzy and started fighting the Foundation because, presumably, they were effectively killing it by killing all of its hosts, which is us. I say got all up in a tizzy, that is, unless it normally wanders around visible on Earth in broad daylight. And if the pestilence, again, assuming this is true, was still present in the goat, then the Foundation wouldn't care to kill everyone, and the entity wouldn't care that we were being killed either. But hold on, gentle viewer. You see, SCP-49 uses the words, the disease was still in its nascent stage. Was. As in, now that the goat is dead, it is no longer there. I think that the plague doctor reanimates subjects so that he can learn how to provide them with a life free of the disease, not keep them dead, and that's good enough. If this is true, the plague doctor is apparently more ethical than the Foundation, which was just stopping their efforts at death. Because as we know, the Foundation has ways of bringing people back to life that could be explored and expanded upon. Just look at SCP-2718, where they bring the former O511 back from death. Man, between 682 and 49, are we sure we should be keeping these entities contained? Seems to be they're more knowledgeable on these matters and at least as ethical, if not more so, than us. But I digress. The incident where SCP-49 attacks and kills Dr. Raymond Ham after suddenly seeing the pestilence in him, I don't have much to say about, as a log is not provided. Rather, we have a retelling of the event in narrative form. For all we know, Raymond Ham may have come in with a shaving nick and winced at the pain or something. Unless a log is written to confirm or deny, we may never know. 49 admits in the article that his is not a perfect cure.
It is not a perfect cure.
But I imagine that if the test the Mobile Task Force used in SCP-5000, which is stabbing those agents, if they were done on instances of SCP-49-2, they wouldn't flinch. They may very well attack their aggressor. I picture it like this. Imagine zombies from The Walking Dead. You could shoot them, stab them, injure them in any way, and they would then know you're there and would attack you, but they don't flinch. They don't register the pain. I picture the SCP-49-2 instances behaving much the same way, coincidentally, showing signs of being cured or unaffected by both the pestilence and this SCP-5000 horror. I think why SCP-49 is so unable to give concrete terms for the pestilence is because, in this form he takes, he is limited. Much like how the SCP-343 tale Revelation goes. It tells, a woman speaks up in SCP-343's presence. SCP-343, referred to in the tale as the biblical name Yahweh, turns to her. He can immediately tell she's an ordinary human, but he does not recognize her. Which the narrator, seemingly conveying to us Yahweh's thoughts, tells us, quote, should not have been possible, ever, not even in this limited human form, unquote. Implying that taking the form of a human means that there very well may be limitations that come along with it. I think this principle also applies to SCP-49. He has taken the form of a medieval plague doctor, and with that form come
a few provisos, a couple of quid pro quos.
Come limitations that mean he can't put into human vocal communication the concept of not a mimetic entity, something else, that has invaded, if that's the right word for it, the collective human unconscious, which is a concept all its own, and has plans for us. What plans? That are so horrible. SCP-96 is so horrible. This is worse. How worse? That it is better to put an end to the human race. How do you know that? Can we check your work? You get the picture. So with this form come limited communications that he can't put into words this concept, but can still fight against it. How many of you can do and accomplish things without quite being able to put into words how you know all that you do? You just know. I think essentially he's the same as all of us. This is only supported when, in the follow-up interview, SCP-49 is asked if he can describe his process in detail, to which he responds,
Oh, goodness no. The process is most intensive.
Though admittedly when he asks,
You do not understand the pestilence? Even after all this time?
Again, presuming I'm correct, he must have a high opinion of us to be able to deduce an entity as abstract and high concept as that from his work alone. Remember earlier in the video when I told you I would talk more about the disseminated cure O51 and presumably the other O5s would disseminate amongst the Foundation? Well, they did in a series of images which apparently worked, as seen by the cessation of resignations and suicide by Foundation personnel, along with the field test the MTF leader performs on the agents. So would this mean the Foundation developed the perfect cure and succeeded where SCP-49 failed? Because remember, they sent out those images intended to release themselves and staff from the influence of the entity, which apparently is what led those MTF agents to get stabbed and not show any signs of pain. And while we're on it, why not send those images out to the world rather than the images of 96's face? Seems like the more merciful way to go. But hey, cure, kill, what's the difference, right? But remember, that's just I'm not doing that. Copyright. Don't want to get hit by MapHat's lawyer. Thanks for watching.